first. So I'm going to move this one to answered. Okay. Oh, I guess there's a two-parter. So I'm gonna, sorry about that. Okay.
You didn't
Hi,
say
Dr.
anything
Huff.
yet.
I
Hi,
know. I'm
Tammy.
like, I'm moving them. It's two pieces. So I'm in a period of separation from my sex addiction husband after learning devastating information in his full disclosure. He has been in recovery for 2 years, but recently admitted he's been using sex with me to act out and a few slips over the years. He never did any abstinence period for the first 2 years, claiming he didn't need to. He's finally doing one now, and it will be 90 days by the end of the month. He has also been very emotionally immature. He hasn't prioritized his recovery. I don't feel confident in the marriage based on how things have been during the separation. He's been improving a little bit. How can I know when it's the right time for him to be able to move back in with me and also to resume intimacy? I'm afraid he'll use me to act out again and the same cycle will continue.
It's a good question. Um, yeah, I have a bunch of different, I have a couple of thoughts, and Tammy, you'll probably weigh in and then maybe bring it back to me. So I just noticed what you said, and I think it's very important to me what people say. I pay a lot of attention to their words, and you said, I don't feel confident in this marriage based on how things have been. So I really encourage you to pay attention to that. I don't overlook that. I also know the rest of that sentence, which is, um, it's so interesting to me that the people who are not motivated to do anything about anything, when their spouse moves even an inch away from them, all of a sudden they're so motivated. And so the motivation that I'm seeing is questionable, because what motivated him to try and finally do something? Well, it was you separating from him, and now all of a sudden he's getting it together. I also wanted to say that, let me just look at this. As Tammy would say, I don't see anything about 12-step meetings. I don't see anything about therapy. I don't see anything about classes. I don't see anything about anything. And so I don't think you have any resources to go to find out more information. I mean, if you were in therapy, I'd say, could I sit with you and your therapist a little bit? I'm concerned about some things. Um, Also for me, and by the way, I don't believe, no offense to him, but I don't necessarily believe that he had an absence period. Just because he told you that doesn't believe it. It doesn't mean you should believe it. What I'd want to know is, how many meetings a week does he go to? How often is he seeing professional? How often does he speak to his recovery people and his sponsor? I mean, to me, it's not just about anything he says, it's about what he does. And so just he says he's in recovery for 2 years. What does that mean? And if he's been, why would anybody? I have to say, if someone said they are having sex with me to act out, I would feel so violated. I would feel unsafe. I would never know when there was safety or when I was just being used. And that I find that very, I would feel really awful about that. Um, the only thing to the last question, I'm going to turn it to Tammy because I know she's got good answers for this one. I think I would ask him, when do you think I would know if how would I know if it's the right time to live with you? And what is it that you are doing to show me in your actions that I could feel safe? And by the way, you didn't tell me what was going on when you were slipping with me. I mean, one of the things I think is really important is to tell you, how are you ever going to regain trust if he doesn't say this to you? So now it's been 2 years and suddenly he decided to tell you that he's been using sex to act out and had a few slips over the years. Did he tell you that when that was going on? Or did you find it out like a new disclosure? So there's a lot of pieces here that make me feel unsafe, not a lot that makes me feel safe, except your desire to have some, to move on with him. So, Tammy, what do you think?
A bunch of things. First of all, you said full disclosure. So I'm assuming that's a formal therapeutic disclosure with your both of your qualified professionals. So if that's the case, then like I if you are in therapeutic separation, what is
So strange.
Hi,
I can't. Hi.
can you hear me?
Yeah, it's so weird because
Can you
this
hear
hasn't
me?
happened all day.
That was so
Yeah,
weird. Oh, it has been to you? Yeah, like
not
I left too,
once.
like the whole
Not
meeting.
once.
I,
Yeah, the whole thing
yeah.
crashed. I don't, but our participants are here. So, that's a
So
good
thank you
thing.
all for hanging in there.
Technical problems,
I
please
hope.
stand
I hope
by.
everybody's here. So.
I can see me.
Yeah, no,
I
no,
just
like
can't
that
see
was the
you.
weirdest thing. Yeah.
Okay, so where'd you go?
I can see you, but you're freezing.
I'm actually quite warm. Now we lost Tammy. Hey guys, somebody say something like, put something in the chat or tell us if you actually can see or hear us. Wow, this is a Zoom failure.
This is weird. Yeah,
It's
this
not
feels
just
like a
me.
Zoom thing because it's kicking. Yeah, it's kicking both of us out. So okay. So
All right,
so
well,
I'm
why don't
gonna
you
try
talk? I can
again.
hear. I just don't know if they can hear us.
Yes. Okay. Um,
So,
we'll find out. So it's being recorded. So we'll keep moving on. So we apologize again. We think this might be a Zoom thing. So, um, uh, but to me, what I don't hear is what his actions are. And if you're working with qualified professionals, I would really want it to be what is the plan. But yeah, we have a treatment program for guys like this, a higher level of help because clearly what he has been kind of dancing around and not doing, hasn't served either of you well. So feel free to reach out to me, Tammy, TAMI.
hey guys, now I'm with you and Tammy has gone away. Tammy, this is so strange because they said they could see me. Now I can see you.
I can see you. Yes,
Okay,
I can
what we
see
should go
you.
on to the next
And
question. You're
yes,
kind of
okay, let's try that. I'm
freezing,
gonna,
but let's keep our fingers crossed.
and you did too. So I don't know if it's you or me or both, but anyway, okay. What is the difference between a registered psychotherapist who is a sexual recovery therapist and a CSAT? Are they the same? No.
No. Now I will say that there are people who do know how to do this work and aren't necessarily certified in sex addiction treatment. I think it's more of a guarantee that somebody is. What I'd want, and I'd ask them, what is your training? Where have you worked? What has been your experience? I mean, there was no CSAT for many, many years, and we were parts of other organizations and we learned in other places. So there are no other designated education programs other than that. So I feel like if you have that designation, or even better, if you write Tammy and say, "Is this a good person?" Um, you'll have a better guide, but at least you will absolutely know that that person has training. Now, are they a great therapist? I don't know, but they've been trained. So Tammy, what are your thoughts?
Well, there was a program, I'm looking it up, and I'm looking up something, but there is a um, it's a DVD in a box program, and that's how you get trained. And I don't remember what they designated
Oh,
themselves as. So it would not. So the gold standard, in my opinion, for training is certified sex addiction therapists. They have access to a number of. I mean, it's a comprehensive training. They do 150 hours of training on top of their mental health credentials. It is for licensed therapists. They are already licensed therapists before they start that. So lots of people say, I do this work, and they don't have the training, and it's not the same as chemical dependency or other things. So are there people that get it and do a good job with it? Yes. Are there some CSETs that we don't recommend? Yes. So it's challenging. You do want the right help. Dr. Rob and I have said before, if you've got cancer, you want the cancer specialist. You want people who can help you with this issue, not your general practitioner who's a great doctor. And if you're getting a flu shot, it's awesome. But otherwise, you want the specialist. So getting the right help really does make a difference. So, unfortunately,
well,
we get lots of people that come to us that are, talking about how things are not going on a good path. And And some of them, like they're well-intentioned, good-hearted people, really want to make a difference, and they don't have the training and the skills to be able to do the work in that way.
I wanted to add to it that I don't know what a registered psychotherapist is. I know what a
I think it's
licensed.
Canadian. I think it's Canadian.
Okay. Well, I don't know, but if it's a US, oh, it says Anonymous Canada. Yeah, I don't know what that means here. We need a license in order to practice, which means I have 3,000 hours of training in addition to graduate school. So I know in the UK, their training is not always so great. I don't know what Canada is like, but I do know this, and Tammy can tell you this, there are a lot of CSATs in Canada. We've been up there, the two of us, doing training in Vancouver and also some really strange places I've never seen before in
Alberta,
Calgary or
Ontario. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I did training for them for a long time. So
Calgary is
Tammy,
not strange.
no, it's not that they're strange. It's not Toronto, not, like
Yeah,
small places. So I
yeah.
think there are a lot of, not strange. There are a lot of CSATs up there.
Hmm.
I would really consider someone who knows this stuff. And Tammy knows people in
Yes,
Canada for sure, because I know she's
I do. I
colleagues with some of
recommend
them. So
people regularly. Yes. So, okay, Dr. Rob, next question. What boundaries and consequences would you recommend for my situation? My husband, a sex addict, and I have been separated for 6 months. My discovery of his cheating occurred about 4 months before that. We only talk about essential life management things, but even in with that, he's not respected my explicitly stated communication boundaries and response time and advance notice before coming to the house to do work. I've already reduced the type and number of things I share with him, so I'm out of consequence ideas. Thanks. That is challenging.
I'm reading again because discovered 4 months after that. So you separated, and then, so is this, Tammy, say that they were apart six months
They
and then 4 months after that?
no, before 4 months before that. So
Oh, before that.
10 months
Okay.
ago that there was discovery, and then 6 months
Right.
ago they separated. And this person is going, I've got these clearly stated boundaries for my safety. And even with that, then he still keeps, coming over and things. And I'm like, I don't know if the locks have been changed, but I would certainly make it so that there is not the ability to just waltz into the house for one
But
thing. And
it's sad that you should
yeah,
have to.
yeah, yes.
So we can both respond. Tammy, why don't you go ahead and I'll jump in.
Well, no, it was, yeah. I mean, for my safety, if you come over to the house, the doors will be locked. You know, if you continue to, this would be harassment. If you continue to do those things, then um, I will file an order for protection. Like, I will take legal matters. You have the right to do that. If somebody is invading your your space, you have the ability to do that. As far as communication, just because he texts or calls does not, I mean, you can say, I will only be looking at my text during the designated time. I will not respond to anything. So just because he sends something to try to engage you, at some point having a negative response is better than no response. And so, if he gets a reaction out of you, even a negative reaction, he's still, connecting with you, even if it's not optimal. But yeah, I hear what you're saying about the you know and it's never about punishment. It is about safety. What you need to do to care of you for your safety. And if he keeps infringing on that, then then it may be I'm going to take matters to the next step in a legal way. So, Dr. Rob, what do you think?
Well, I think, what kind of relationship do you want? Do you want a relationship with someone who respects you and who understands your needs? And if you're uncomfortable, or do you want someone who does whatever they want to do, whether you like it or not? I mean, that's what he's saying. I don't know about you, Tammy, but there's something icky about this. There's something about how, I just do what I want to do. I'll show up anytime I want. You have no control.
Exactly.
It feels very unsafe. And it also feels like some kind of message on some level. We have subtext. Sometimes we say something explicitly, but there's something underneath. And what I hear underneath is, screw you. I'll do what I want. You can't control my life. And just because you kick me out doesn't mean I'm not going to be around. And I think that feels like a continuing violation. So you said you're out of consequence ideas. I hear these people called lawyers, And, you know, you can have a legal separation. You don't just have to be separate. Doesn't mean you're going to break up. Doesn't mean you're not going to work it out. But I think, especially in your situation where it's unsafe, I'm concerned about your finances. I'm concerned if you have kids and what's being said to them. You know, if the basic boundary of please don't come over unless you let me know, or, you know, whatever that, if that's not being respected, and that's so basic, that's so simple, so clear, then what else is, then this is an angry gesture. This is an FU. And it's also who knows whatever the hell else he's doing. So, and this doesn't even say anything about recovery or healing or, you know, by the way, another way to do it, which would be reasonable, is say, if you want to talk to me, let's talk in the therapist's office. I'm willing to do that with you. But that may already be one of your boundaries. Anyway, this makes me feel very unsafe because it is a physical act of actually showing up. And I think that just makes me really uncomfortable for you. I'm glad you're here.
And I was thinking, I think I'd hire the work done. Like he doesn't need to be on my house. Like
Right.
it'd be my house. This is my space. And like, you know what? You can call a plumber or somebody
Plumber.
to come in,
Right.
a handy person. Yeah. Who will probably respect your boundaries more than your husband. And I'm really sorry about that. But yeah, the boundaries, that is, I don't hear anything that would make it so that there's a possibility of moving forward, because he's not respecting even basic boundaries for safety.
This is a great question coming up. Sad.
Yes, I have been recently diagnosed with syphilis. My wife will leave me soon, and she is right to do so. Is there any reason to try to get better?
You know, we have a treatment center and we call it Seeking Integrity. And I sit with the men. And, you know, I've said this before, at least to Tammy, that I've probably treated 900 men, maybe more. And I can tell you that 5%, 99% of them come in because they're in a crisis and they need help. And the other couple of percent come in because they want to be a better person. But everybody who really is doing work comes to understand that they don't want to look in the mirror and see the person they've been. There is more. Yes, your wife might, the failure of your marriage, and we don't even know if that's the case yet. We know that she's leaving. We don't know what the future will bring, but that would certainly motivate me. Do I ever want to be someone who gives someone or potentially gives someone a disease again? Do I ever want to be in a situation where I have to look in the mirror and go to the doctor and take, you know, do whatever? And by the way, there are a lot worse things than syphilis. And where you're putting, if you can get syphilis, you can get HIV, you can get all kinds of things, you can get HPV. So I just, number one, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that you weren't able to get where you needed to get before this happened. Um, I'm glad for your wife that she's doing what she needs to do to take care of herself. My hope is that she's not just doing it in anger, but she's doing it also because she doesn't feel safe and she wants to move on. But there's every reason to get better. And I'll give you the best reason of all in my mind is if you get better, you could help other people. You know, it isn't just about you. There are other people who could look up to you, who could learn from you, who might say, wow, I lost my wife too, and you got through it. How did you get through it? Maybe I'll get through it. So if there's any way you can take the focus off of yourself as a bad person and see what you have to give, and you can't give that while you're running around doing what you're doing, so the reasons I'm saying are so that you can be a better person for yourself and feel good looking in the mirror. And so that you can be a person who is of service to others when they're in this situation. So it's sort of like saying, do I have a reason to live? You certainly do. You have every reason to recover. If nothing else, because there will be another relationship, there will be a future for you. And do you want to do this to someone else? So um, yeah, that's my response. And it is a very sad, sad couple of sentences there. Tammy,
Well, I was thinking, you have shared before how clients that come to our residential program have said, I didn't have to lose my first marriage, and they're on marriage number three, because if they'd gotten the help that they needed, and they have just, continued to make, wreckage in their wake, as they move through. So yes, if you don't change, then you will do this in other relationships, and at the end of the day, I would hope that that isn't what you would want. And again, like Dr. Rob said, taking it out of the shame of like, oh, I'm so bad. It's like, we talk all the time. Guys have brokenness, and we talk about guys because that's what we work with in our residential program, but somebody with compulsive behavior, somebody with addiction has brokenness, and there's a reason, and there, it's not an excuse, but there's reasons why choosing those compulsive behaviors instead of something that would be really meaningful. But they can learn if they're willing to do things differently. They can learn to be the person. And I don't know if you've got kids, but let's say you do, then you will always co-parent with the person, with your wife. You will go co-grandparent at some point. So do you want to be the person that can look yourself in the mirror, that can be the stand-up person? I would hope so. And there's lots of resources. I'm glad you're here, but we've got online work groups, we've got drop-in groups, and we've got a residential treatment program that can really help you get a solid foundation for recovery much faster than trying to pull it together yourself.
And spouses are part of that residential treatment. So we have spouses that are divorced. We have spouses who are in all kinds of situations, but they want to be a part of this. And so leave me soon, that I don't know what that means, because I hear a lot of spouses say, I hate you, I never want anything to do with you. And then 3 months later, they're like, this gives me a lot of hope. And maybe you've already heard about some people who had separations. I think that, first of all, one more thing. I really appreciate your saying she is right to do so. That you're not doing what that other person did, which is I'll just stop by the house when I feel like it. That alone is healthy. It shows some humility. I'm sorry that this is what it took for you to get to the point of healing, but don't miss the message. The message is not, oh, well, my marriage fell apart, so why get well? The message is, now I have every reason to get well. Maybe something will get better with us. Maybe, there's so many things that could happen, and you're just not giving them even a chance. So, yeah. So I think we've said it, and I'll go back to, there are people who need your help, and you're not giving them that opportunity. There are a lot of men who've been left by their wives who don't know who to turn to or what to talk about. When you get some support and help, you will be able to do that too. And by the way, I know Tammy's been talking about, and she's our magic maker, that we're going to start a group for men who are separated, divorced, struggling with these kinds of issues at some point in the near future. So there will be a place for you to come and talk about this with other men who are also dealing with it. And I think that's also, you need to be with other men who are dealing with this and have dealt with this. So small question, lots of stuff underneath it.
And to the counterpoint to that, we have a betrayed partners group called Moving On Alone, where for people that have been left, are leaving, or have one foot out the door already, that is a place for them to talk about that, get some support and practical ideas.
Can men go
on
to that
things.
meeting, Tammy?
And it's for betrayed partners. So, and it's been
But
women
if you're,
only so far.
okay, women
Yeah.
only.
So,
Okay.
so I haven't
Okay.
heard from any men asking, and it's a newer group. It just started in June, but it's, it's well attended. Unfortunately, that tells you that lots of people, have separated or are in the process. So, but again, a safe space. So yes, we are working on a drop-in group for men.
For men who are, and I want to say one more thing to you, and this is just my experience as a therapist, and take what you like and leave the rest. I have rarely seen this issue break up couples. I have seen this issue be the end point of a couple that was not doing well. But most of the time, people have so much, how do I say this? When someone finds out about this stuff, they're devastated, they're horrified, all that stuff. But generally, couples that don't stay together, in my experience, probably weren't going to anyway. And there's something that was, this isn't the first crack in the wall. There's been a lot of other stuff that led to this. And so you have so much more to share other than this. So, I'm not sure I don't know what's going on with this, but there's more than just this, would be my thought. Anyway.
Next question. My spouse, betrayed partner, has indicated that she cannot feel safe unless we create a postnuptial agreement that ensures she gets a significant majority of assets and my future earnings. We are 6 months into recovery, and I am prioritizing my recovery: 12-step books, podcasts, classes, therapy, formal disclosures, etc., but not sure what to think of this demand.
Well, I'll tell you I'll just tell you what comes across my boat is that this feels like punishment. If you've done this to me, and so now I'm going to take, if it was, I want to make sure I'm safe and we can share, equally in what we've both earned, but you don't owe her more money or more, than you. I don't know. Tammy may feel differently, but I don't think that. To me, this feels like more of a threat or anger than it does. Let's sit down and figure out how we can move forward together and what happens if we don't. I'm glad you're focused on your recovery, but when you say significant majority of assets and future earnings, that doesn't, this isn't, okay, I've hurt you, so I'm going to give you three-quarters of what I earn. I mean, that, or we've earned, I'm sorry. I don't, again, I think that feels like punishment. I understand it as a boundary. My response would be, I think that's something we need to talk about with a professional. I don't fully understand it. Either you're going to come to trust me and we will, we already in most places I know share things equally if we don't stay together. So I can imagine something like, my spouse wants to take over the finances because they don't feel safe with me having access to, I spent money on sex workers, whatever. But I don't know, Tammy, you may disagree, but significant majority of my assets and future earnings, that just feels like, like a finger wagging at someone. So I don't know, Tammy, you might feel
I
differently.
do feel differently. I know, because not every state has the same. It depends on the state's laws, and there are some states where that people have invested a lot of years into a relationship. The women stayed home; they weren't earning, and they are in a really difficult financial situation. So now the piece of it, and I know that I'm hearing this from your perspective, and it may be accurate, but it also may be a lens of what you're feeling like it is, that she's going to take all of this rather than, like, I love what Dr. Rob said about, can we have a discussion about this and what would be equitable and fair, for the investment of everything that she has stayed with you through, and looking forward so that she does have safety. And, but it's also a little bit of hopefully a motivator that I really do want to do this work. I hear that you're doing lots of good stuff, and there's no guarantee that we'll all stay on the recovery path, and she can't guarantee that by creating a post-nup.
Right.
But on the other hand, if I hear too often from betrayed partners who are like, I won't have the financial security because of the situation in their state to be able to leave, and so they are stuck.
But Tammy, I want to be very clear. It doesn't say that we will equally divide or that we will, it says significant majority.
I hear that's what he is saying, he's
Right,
hearing.
right,
And
right,
so I'm going, that could be what she is saying, and it could
right.
be, let's go work with a qualified professional who can mediate this and help us come to something that will provide us both with motivation to move forward together and security. So to me, there would be I would be concerned if it was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And there was no ability to have a conversation about it. So again, I hear what you are saying, and that may be accurate. And it could also be, this is her negotiating, this is the first draft, and this is what so there's an opportunity to come to a resolution about how we can move forward and create a safe space for both of us.
Yeah, I want to follow Tammy with I words are important to me. And your partner said, I'm not sure what to think of this demand. I don't think you need to read much into it. She doesn't feel safe. Now, I honestly promise you that if you gave her every penny you ever owe, she's still not going to feel safe, because safety is not maybe not financially safe. You need to work that out, as Tammy said, but safety is not defined by, okay, I'm going to give you this or that. Safety is defined by what's going on in the relationship. So as we said, like in therapy with a professional, how can I make you feel more safe? If we're going to not be together, I think that there's a lot more on this meat on this bone than simply, if you do this, then that. And I talked about subtext before. There's some message that's being given in here. I don't know what it is, that you need to listen to, but I think you need to both sit down and talk about it, hopefully with a professional.
Yes. Yeah. This is somebody who can help you negotiate and mediate through this, so it isn't feelings or I'm being controlled or he's not making me say, like, that's that's the easy place for it to get to. So having somebody that can help you navigate that space, so there is, okay, we're both coming to the table and we're working on navigating a path forward that works for both of us. That to me would be good for recovery, but also help show intent and responsibility as well. So
I want to add one more thing, which is we are 6 months into recovery. 6 months is
a drop in the bucket.
It's a drop in the bucket, and it's when the reactivity is the highest. So I would take that into account too, is that we are very early in this process, both of us, which is all the more reason to seek someone out to help the two of you with this issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next question. Hi, I'm moving on without my addict spouse. Where do I begin? What sort of therapy? CSAT? I'd like to work towards healing from betrayal. I mentioned earlier the Moving On Alone drop-in group. That's on Thursday afternoons at
It's free.
12:05. It's free. It's 12:05 Pacific time till 1 p.m. And that's a very specific group. Any of the betrayed partner groups, even our betrayed partner work group, that starts again November 2nd, is helpful. CSAT could be helpful, honestly, for betrayed partners. Somebody who is good at betrayal trauma and gets trauma might be, as helpful. Someone who understands addiction. If you want to email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, include your location and this request, and I will do my best to help you find professionals. But you will hear so much, good content on our websites. I'm glad you're here. And there's Debbie McCrae did a 2-part series on grief. She did a 2-part webinar. Asked me about that too, because that was so good. And it's like, it's not just I do this phase and then I go to the next. It's like it's back and forth, and there's an ebb and flow, but doing the work and understanding so you don't get stuck. But can move forward. And even if you stay in a relationship, I'll add this, there's always the grief of the loss of the relationship you hope for, the grief of the loss of the partner you thought you had, all of that stuff. So there's a lot of grief, that is part of the recovery work, really on both sides as well. So, but I'm glad you're here. So Dr. Rob, thoughts?
I wanted to add to this that I don't know that moving on from them will help you heal betrayal. I don't know that betrayals, you will, even if you see someone else, it will always be on your mind. It doesn't go away. It's a scar. And so, if that's your complete reason, I would not, anyway, I don't know what the relationship is about. I'm really a fan of people trying to work things out. That's just who I am in my heart. But you may have been together 6 months, in which case you're absolutely right to do that. I want to agree with Tammy that I'll even take it a step further, that there are many, many therapists who can support someone who is grieving about a loss of a marriage. Lord knows, and maybe in this case, it may not matter so much with the therapist what led to the end of the relationship, but what you're doing is you're grieving the loss of trust, the loss of the relationship. You need a lot of support. You need a really supportive, nurturing therapist. And it can be helpful to have someone who's an expert in betrayal, but you're not going to be there. So, what partners need most of all, by the way, we need direct challenge, structure, confrontation, a new way of living, looking at our past. That's the work that addicts need to do. Partners don't need to do that. Partners need to come to peace with what's happened, to deal with their grief, to begin to come to terms with how they might move forward for themselves. You have a whole different path. Partners need a lot more nurturing and a lot more support, and addicts need a lot more direction. By the way, I did want to say really quickly, because I was looking for something myself, that if you're looking for the free groups, they're all at the bottom of the Seeking Integrity page. So if you look right at the front, you're like, I don't know where this is. They're all down to the, I guess, the second part. So the free groups are not listed right up front, but if you go down further, you'll find all of them. And it says, I think, free support groups or something.
And it says sex and relationship healing, and there's other links throughout that too. But yes. There's a lot of content on there. We try to be very clear on, here's the podcasts, here's the drop-in groups, here's the webinars. So there's
absolutely
there's info. Okay. All right. The next one, honestly breaks my heart. I'm concerned that my husband is merely sober from alcohol and not acknowledging the betrayal. He just came home from 50 days in inpatient alcohol treatment 3 days ago. Disclosure of him having affairs with 5 or 6 separate women was given to me during the treatment program. If my husband is working alcohol addiction 12-step groups, step work, and going to a personal therapist and attending church enough work, I feel like he is in denial, potentially thinking that admitting was enough. Now he moves on.
Well, this is the reason we opened a treatment program that in part has a specialty of people who struggle with drugs and alcohol. What I often find in the case is that someone goes through treatment as they should for alcoholism or drug addiction, but no one really brings up betrayal, sexual behavior, affairs, that just doesn't come up. Now, sometimes it gets talked about, and I think what else do they know? And then they tell you, but that doesn't mean that there's a focus on them working on it. And I think this is your concern. Is it just okay to admit it to me, or does this person really need to work on this too? And I guess my response for me is I would not feel safe as a partner unless their recovery included some kind of commitment to sex and relationship healing. I'm glad he's going to get sober from alcohol. I'm glad he's doing all the work that you're talking about, but that may not be enough for you. And we're talking about your safety and your boundaries. And you get to say, I'm thrilled that you're doing this. I'm so proud of you, but I am not going to feel safe until you do this part too. And I love your gut. And this is really what I tell spouses. When you're overreacting, when you're coming from anxiety, when you're doubting yourself. But when you say, I feel that he is in denial, potentially thinking that admitting this was enough now that he moves and now he can move on, that isn't true. You wouldn't be writing this, you wouldn't be saying this. It's not enough. And it's not enough to leave you feeling safe. And whatever he's doing or not doing, or this is a boundary for you. I don't feel safe unless you are doing these things. Perfectly fair. And I just want to say to everybody, we do the work in 3 to 4 weeks. And to me, 50 days is it's just a lot of time to spend. I think the rubber hits the road when you get home. So if you have a decent running start, 3, 4 weeks of really getting it and working on, then you need to go home and go to alumni groups and get support and go to, that's why I love the program that I've created, is because we're not about keeping people forever. We're not about, looking at every single issue forever. We know what our limitations are. I can't do trauma work with someone who's in there for 30 days, but I can help them understand that they have it and set them down the road to working on it. So I don't care if someone came home from 130 days in treatment. The amount of time does not matter to me. What matters is, and we talk about this all the time, it matters about the quality of the work. Who is there? Was there a CSAT there? Was there someone who was trained in this? What kind of program was it? Alcohol and drugs are great, but my experience is that therapists in general don't know how to talk about sex, don't want to talk about sex. If this is just like that, like it got touched on, and someone said, you better tell your wife, well, that's great, but that's not actually working on it. And so I agree with your concerns. Tammy, what are you thinking?
Oh, you're kinder than me. Angry that you got a vomit disclosure while he's in treatment. There's no support for you during any of this. So, you get a nice phone call with your spouse who's supposed to be doing, work and treatment. And it's like, oh, by the way, I've had, affairs with 5 or 6, separate women.
Or you go there and
oh, yes, yeah. Oh, there's that too. But yeah, a lot of times it's on the phone, so I hate that. Now, so here's a little thing in 12-step in AA, in searching a fearless moral inventory of ourselves, sex is talked about a lot. And guess what? There's a whole bunch of sex addicts that minimize that in an AA 12-step program. So it kind of depends. If they're really doing a searching a fearless moral inventory, they would go, oh, wait, I probably have a problem with sex too. I don't hear that. And we get lots of guys who come to us who have years of recovery in AA, and guess what? They've been acting out. Yes, yeah, they are sober in AA, and they're acting out in other ways, including, sex and porn addiction. So, but it's like why we address things in a holistic way. We've had guys that have come to us that really had a serious gambling addiction. His primary was sex, but he had gambling. So the treatment team had him set up so that he was doing some work with Gamblers Anonymous,
Right.
And so he was connected to that, because if you leave things unattended,
Right.
guess what? That's
It's
just switching
whack-a-mole.
to another form of acting out. Yeah. So, but
I
for you, healthy boundaries so that you have safety, because yes, I would not trust, he's still minimizing. Oh yeah, I'm fine now. No. It hurts me that the treatment program didn't go, and there's more, with the
well,
problematic behaviors.
and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tammy. I don't know that he isn't still having affairs. You don't know. Did you go through each one and when they ended and when they started? And is this someone you know? Is this someone at his office? Do you even know who this was? By the way, I want to say this is to me an ideal situation for me to do a consultation. I do 2-hour consultations, sometimes 2.5, with couples who are really struggling with a specific issue, like um, my spouse is not listening to me and things are a lot worse than they realize, and I need you to kind of knock them on the noggin, which I tend to do pretty well. This is really an evaluation. Where is he? Are you? What has been done? What hasn't? And you're welcome to come sit with me for 2 hours or whatever, and sit down and talk about it, the two of you, and figure out what is really going on. Because what I don't hear is he's unwilling, or he doesn't care, or they may have just said, tell her about this, and that may be what he did. But what follows that, I think that you need a lot more information to feel safe. So why don't we
I
keep
just typed,
going?
yeah, we will. But we also have a self-assessment. We've got 2 self-assessments. One's for sex and porn addiction, and one is for sex, porn, and co-occurring chemical addiction. And it's not what we use for guys coming into our residential program. That's far more comprehensive, but it's a good, like, just little indicator of like, oh, yeah, might have an issue here too. Okay, so Dr. Rob, the next one. In regards to therapy for the betrayed and unfaithful spouse, there seems to be differing opinions on whether individual and couples therapy should happen at the same time, or first do individual therapy followed by couples therapy. What is your opinion? If it's the latter, what criteria should be met before couples therapy is a good idea? As the betrayed spouse, I'm waiting for him to be living recovery, which I am not fully sure what that means. Other than sobriety, please explain in detail.
Well, just to say it, and I don't mean to harp on it, this is another couple that would be really well served by sitting in a consultation with me, because it feels like there's some real evaluation and open discussion that needs to be done. Because if you should really know what recovery. By the way, I hope you're going to one of the free support groups for betrayed partners, because they know, trust me, every one of them knows exactly what recovery is supposed to look like. And as far as your question, I don't know how far along you are. So let me say this is how I look at it. If you're in the first 6 months of recovery, it's just been found out this person's working on themselves, you're beginning therapy, or they've been, I think that it's too soon for couples work, because my experience is, and I'm going to be very general, that if you're starting therapy at the beginning of the crisis, basically there's only 2 things that come out of that. One is the spouse says on some level, I hate you, how could you ruin my life? In various ways, but I love you, but how could you do this to me if you love me? And then the addict just says, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean it, I'm so broken. So it goes back and forth between please forgive me and I can't believe you did this to me. And that's because the feelings are really high and there really isn't a lot of place to go as a couple. So I think the hard part in the beginning is that every couple who is reasonably functional is used to turning to your spouse. I turn to my wife, I turn to my husband when I'm having a bad day, when I'm struggling with things. Even addicts will turn to you. But now you can't turn to your best friend. You can't turn to each other. And that goes for recovery too. You need to learn and practice turning to other people for support. However, if this has been a while, and I don't think it says how long this has been, if this has been 6 months or a year, it may well be useful for the two of you to sit together. And you certainly should know the criteria that matter to tell you if he's in recovery or not, or if she's recovery or not. You should know what is required. So Tammy, I know you have some more direct information, things they can watch, things they can
Yeah,
see.
I do. And, like when I first read Unfaithful Spouse, yeah, like we kind of differentiate between cheaters because like if somebody had a one-time affair, and I'm not minimizing that, I know it's painful, but that's very different than the chronic compulsive behaviors, that keep happening. So I'm glad you're here. And from what you're sharing, to me, it feels like you're early in the process. And somebody used this analogy, and I would give credit if I could remember, but going to couples therapy early in the process is like rowing a boat with one oar. You, the betrayed spouse, are paddling like crazy trying to fix the relationship, and the other person is sitting in the boat, still lying, minimizing, going, do we really have a problem, all of the, deflecting all of that. So you're going around in circles. So there are a handful of times when like just getting a mediation on how do we communicate, how do we do this, but usually a betrayed partner getting support, the addict getting, like Dr. Rob said, it's a very different process. It's behavioral therapy because behavioral addictions need behavioral therapy. So you guys are getting a different kind of help, to be able to move forward. Often it's around formal therapeutic disclosure that, someone, now is a good time to have couples therapy, but your individual therapist can also help guide you and go, now could be a good time. If like the previous question, there's a post up, that would be a good mediation thing for a couples therapist. So there are components, and there can be touch-ins, earlier in the process, but really doing the deeper couples work, an addict's got to be able to show up, truthfully, and that's very difficult early in the process. That's learning to be able to tolerate emotional discomfort, and not lying to ourselves and everyone else. So please do lean in. Dr. Rob has a great podcast, Sex, Love, and Addiction. It's had over 1.3 million downloads. Lots of great content that will help you learn what codependence is for betrayed partners. Learn what sex addiction is and isn't. There's some very kind of primer type information on there too. And then there's deeper stuff too. So get a foothold in that betrayed partner group tomorrow morning, and another Wednesday, and another Thursday morning. So lots of different resources for you, but for the betrayer, there's lots of resources on our site, for that as well. So,
And by the way, I would encourage him, I think him or her, bring them here. Ask these questions in front with them with you. Have them have a chance to listen. Let them weigh on some of the questions. I think not only for the two of you, but so much stuff will fly by that is probably related to the two of you. Why isn't he or she here with you, listening and being a part of this? Why aren't they listening to the podcast? There's so many pieces. Again, recovery is active. I would want to see, what activity, and maybe that's the best answer to your question, which is, I'm not sure what criteria should be met. I can tell you what something is, that there's an active process. I'm going to groups, I'm going to meetings. It isn't even so much about what the person does as their motivation. You can see it if they want to get well. You can see it if they're committed. There are certain things that you can't fake. And deep, meaningful, emotional, and motivation and commitment to change is fairly obvious because the person is doing something every single day. And so I would want to ask, well, what are you actually doing to get better? Because I need to know. And then you can go to one of the support groups and say, well, here she's doing this. Do you think that's enough? And, you need peers around to give you feedback. So lots of answers to that question.
well, and this is a good roll into the next one of what not to do. So my partner addict opened up to me that his sponsor only makes him check in, text, or voicemail. He's also opened up saying he's still watching porn nightly. He tells everyone how he's so invested in his recovery. I feel like he's not taking it seriously. He's not. I've asked for space since I see these red flags. Am I crazy when in this situation? You are not.
No. I'll just say this. If I'm a good addict, I'm really good at it, I can find someone to agree. I can always find someone to agree with how I want it to be. I'm sure that if I wanted to, I could go to a meeting and find a sponsor who says, oh, porn, not a problem, or disclosure. Why would you ever want to tell them that? Or, so I don't know what your partner is doing. Maybe they're simply talking to somebody who's not well informed, but I really trust what you're thinking. Yes, ask for space. Yes, these are red flags. No, you're not crazy. Clearly, he's not fully invested. and not taking it seriously. Yeah, so I don't know, you know, checking it by text or voicemail is the least part of it. What else is he doing? By the way, talking to a sponsor is great. What about therapy? What about 12-step programs? What about taking a course like we offer? What else is going on here other than he tells you this or tells you that? I don't even know if any of this is true. So I trust you completely and I trust your gut. Tammy, is there anything you want to add to that? You said that this
Yeah,
was
and
a good
yeah,
follow-up.
no, I'm sad because, like Dr. Rob said, I can go to a meeting and I can go find the worst sponsor on the planet and have that person tell me, oh, sure, oh, just text me. Like do the checking in, but it's also, if I'm only giving lip service to this, he tells everybody how committed he is to recovery. He's not, so he's lying to himself and everyone else because he still wants to look at porn and whatever else he's doing. I wouldn't trust anything. I would trust his actions, and his actions are, I'm, warming a seat in a 12-step meeting occasionally. I'm checking off a couple boxes, but I'm still acting out. So he's not in recovery to me. He's not even abstinent. He's watching porn every night. So I'm sorry. So healthy boundaries for you is my last point. So Dr. Rob, skip down to 521. As a betrayed partner, how do I let go of resentments? Resentment that my partner didn't try harder for recovery. They took so long to even try getting help. Resentment that it took so much of my time. We are in our early 30s.
Well, I don't know how much time this has been. If it's been 3 months, you're going to be full of resentments for a very long time. Um, I I I think none of us try hard for recovery unless we are faced with a real crisis. I don't know how long it took. Again, what I don't know is how long is this process? How long has it been going on? Um, and and so resentments are part of the process. You have absolutely every reason to be resentful. Um, spouses have many, many reasons. How could you not tell me? How could you do this and say you love me at the same time? Why didn't you get help before I even found out about this? Again, I think what matters is what happens moving forward, how motivated they are, how engaged they are, what your resentments will begin to ease when you see that there's hope for real change. Um, what was I going to say to you? Oh, and by the way, just um, Tammy, why don't you go ahead? I'm thinking about a whole bunch of stuff.
Well, I
So,
was thinking, it's so. As an addict, I have to let go of resentments. Resentments are our number one offender. So, like on some level, this is the price we pay for life's, the university of life. And so you are learning and you are stronger than you knew you were. But if you understand that in his brokenness, this is who he is. It wasn't, against you. And I'm not making excuses for him at all. But like Dr. Rob said, if until the cost of getting help, until the pain of getting help is less than the pain of staying the same, we don't change. You just heard from that other person. I'm still looking at porn every night. I'm checking in with my sponsor. I'm really doing recovery well. No, so we hang on to the problematic behaviors as a maladaptive coping mechanism, regardless of negative consequences. So if you can understand that, I often say this one, if you can look at him as an 8-year-old boy, like, because there was something broken probably around that age. And if you can have some compassion for him around that, and I'm not saying you have to forgive him or any of that other stuff, but it might just help you shift the lens a little bit and go, he's a broken person. And I'm sorry, you are in your early 30s. Like, hallelujah, you guys have a whole bunch of time to to do things differently. Do you know how many people we get who have been married for 40 years, and how that rocks their world, because they're like, was everything a lie? So I hear you. I'm not minimizing anything, but you have the ability, at a very lovely young age to be able to start to shift things, and you will take those lessons as you move forward. So good for you. And resentments don't help me. I read lots of materials about letting go of resentments. I have a whole practice about that because I just can't hang on to them. They hurt me more than they hurt anybody else. And so I feel free to email me if you want me to share any of my stuff. So Dr. Rob, are you
Well, I
ready for the
wanted
next
to
one?
add
Go
one
ahead.
more I
Yeah.
have one more thing, which is when I see the word resentment, I think anger. And, I can't let go of my anger. And
And hurt.
what you need
Yeah.
to know from a therapist is that anger is a way of hiding other feelings, because what's underneath anger almost always is deep hurt and hurt and fear are the things. Because when you get angry and you're resentful, it's like you can feel more powerful, but if you let go all of that, what's underneath is sadness and fear. And what I think might help with some of the resentments is grieving, because anger is a part of the grief process, but it's not the whole grief process. And what's harder is what comes next, which is some level of depression and understanding that this really happened to me. And so one of the reasons I think you may be stuck is what's underneath, which is how vulnerable and scared you feel. And you can get a lot of support for that. So,
and you can
yeah.
get through it. You can't just shove it. Well, you can shove it up in the closet and pretend it doesn't exist, but then it just festers inside. So there is support for you to move through those feelings. So that would, yeah, great call, Dr. Rob. Okay, 2 more questions. So anonymous attendee, I really struggle. I don't know as a betrayed partner if my feelings being so shut off is permanent or temporary. It's been 6 months and I still feel nothing towards my SA husband. We had a second D-Day 6 months ago after faking recovery, and he went to SI and he's supposedly really doing the work. How does a partner know if they're done emotionally?
Well, what I didn't hear here is we're living separately, or we've taken a time out. In other words, are there actions that you've taken, which is the next step toward, I don't know if this is going to go forward. You might have this person move out and feel, whew, glad that they're not here and I can move on with life, and I'm feeling really good about that. Or you may have them go and think, wow, I didn't realize how important they were and how hard, for me, I think taking another step toward separation, I think it's very understandable to not know what you're feeling and be really shut down. And I think it's very understandable to not be close to this person. Supposedly doing the work, of course, is, would be reassuring to me. And I wonder what your boundaries are about what will make you feel safe. But overall, yeah, I mean, 6 months is not a very long time, but I do think if is this person sleeping in your bed? Are they in your house? What boundaries have you set up? If I don't feel loving towards someone, then I probably wouldn't spend a lot of time with them. I'd go out to dinner with friends. I'd take care of myself. I'd let them be. And so to what degree are you putting a focus on you and living your own life to see if that is something that brings you to life more than the relationship with this person? So there may be some actions that you need to take in order to learn more. But I don't know if Tammy would agree.
Yeah, and I don't know either. I mean, 6 months is early in the process, and like you said, a false recovery and all of that. So I can imagine hanging on and wanting to wait and see more. I think ultimately, what do you want? Do you vision? I often share. Dr. Rob has done another podcast with Dr. Stan Tatkin, and that's all good too. But I always go back to we do, because if you vision a relationship together and you guys are here, then navigating the path forward together, will take some work. And if, like there are lots of partners that go, yeah, I'm done. When your head and your heart align and you go, I'm done, I think, you're done. I would also not want to do it out of a reaction. And so making sure you get support, from a qualified professional to talk through that and really look at all aspects. Journaling can help, like the pros and cons of, all that. So give yourself some space to do the work to make sure that if you're making a life-changing decision, that you're choosing it and it's not, from a place where you later go, did I do that too quick? So Okay, the
Let's do
next
the
one,
next
Dr.
one
Go
really. I
ahead.
have really quick answers for the next one. Won't take
Okay,
long.
I've
So
been
let's go
struggling
on.
with acting out for over 20 years. I know it's impacted my life in a negative way and I cause tremendous amount of pain for my spouse. I'm working on recovery. I see a therapist once a week and I attend addiction group once a week. My biggest struggle is the positive coping mechanisms. What coping mechanisms can you recommend? Also, what should I do more of to make my spouse feel more confident that I'm doing the work better?
Well, I want to start with the second part first, which is, and I really mean this. I'm not going to sell. I'm going to tell you, go take Sex Addiction 101. Take the course. Part of it is I don't think anybody recovers with no, don't, stop, can't. I think you're very wise to say, how can I cope? How can I move from the no's and the don'ts to things that make me feel more solid? And, I don't know what that is. It might be joining a team. It might be, pursuing something you've been wanting to pursue. It might be working in the house or spending time with your kids. But there are things that can help you cope better. And I think you're wise to look and see what they are. Now, the other part, you're not doing enough. Why? You've been acting out for 20 years and you go to therapy once a week and addiction group once a week. How about going to addiction group 4 days a week? You don't even have to leave your house. You want more answers, do more work. And to me, if you could spend 20 years acting out, and Lord knows how much of your time that took, then you could spend a whole lot more time in recovery. The reason you don't have answers is you're not doing enough. And if you want your spouse to feel more confident, take the course because I really think for you it's especially important. And they will see you doing that and think, oh, well, there's another thing they're doing. And the other thing is I just don't feel comfortable, nor would I feel confident or encouraged if I saw you doing something 50 minutes here and an hour there. And, think how many hours you spend acting out. And now you want to look at, well, I'm going to spend 2 hours a week in working on recovery. It isn't like that. It's every single day I do something for my recovery. So you have good questions, but the answers are work harder, in part. Tammy, anything you want to add?
Oh yeah, I did. Like, I've been around recovery for a long time, and you know what? I did my meditations today. Last week was a little challenging week, so I made sure I got to extra meetings. I don't take any of this stuff for granted. So, the positive coping, I get reset every time I sit in a 12-step meeting. And yeah, that's my positive coping mechanism. But reading my meditation, it's on my phone. Like, my phone is with me all the time, so therefore I always have a positive thing to attend to. But if I'm paying attention to what's in my outer circle, what are the things that bring me joy? I went for a hike on Sunday. It was a beautiful sunrise. Thank you to my dog for getting me up extra early to do that. So I got to appreciate a sunrise. Like, there's always things for me to choose that are positive, and I can always choose to go negative. But so much more joy in my
And you
life
know
if
what,
I
Tammy?
choose
I don't
to
even
be
know if this
positive.
person knows.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they know what a circle plan is. I don't know, because if you knew what a circle
Oh.
plan was, you would have
Oh.
coping skills and that's why I recommended the course. It's like, I don't even think this person understands what they have to build on a piece of paper to understand the practice. Again,
Yes.
no, don't, shouldn't, can't, and knowing when I'm getting into trouble, that's important. But my experience nearly always is recovery is built around what brings me joy, what makes me feel content, what do I
Yes.
want to work toward.
Yes.
If all the rest of it is sackcloth and ashes, then I don't want to do it. What is going to make you feel
No.
not just coping, but make you feel and look forward to every single day? So, anyway, Tammy, it's great
We
to
are
work with
not a
you.
glum lot. That's what it says in 12-step big literature. We are not a glum lot. This is from like a long time ago, but we are not. We are, there is joy in life. It gives us and I shared this actually recently, Dr. Rob, because you talked about in addiction, we're in black and white, and in a recovery, it's technicolor. Like, we get the good stuff in life if we choose it. So, and we want to help you guys all choose it. So
All right, Tammy, thank you for your time. Good to see you. And
thank you.
folks,
Thanks,
this
everybody.
recording will
Bye.
be online if you want to find it. We hope that you do. And you can find that on speakingintegrity.com. And have a good evening. Thank you, Tammy.
Thanks, everybody.